I'm going to show you how to build a consulting website, but not only just build it in a way that it's going to generate more client opportunities for your consulting business.
I will never be the same, 'cause that's what it takes.
Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode 158. Today on the show, we're talking websites. Consulting business websites, which is a particular type of website. There are all sorts of different types of websites you can make, but we're going to talk about which key features are important to ensure that your website, as a consultant, converts visitors into leads and into prospects, and then finally into clients. We're going to show you the steps and what are the key features that your website needs to have. Now, we're not only just going to talk about that, I want to have a sidebar quickly just before we get started, which is to say that if you are looking to start a consulting practice, you do not need a website to start. All you need is one of these. That means you can speak to people, and I would suggest maybe a LinkedIn profile. Once you've got those two things, you can absolutely get started. You can get on the internet, you can make connections, you can speak to people. That's all you need to run a successful consulting practice. But there will come a time when you want to leverage your opportunities, when you want to be asleep at some point and you can't have the conversations with those prospects. Well, what a website enables you to do is have those conversations in a small way with potential opportunities while you're asleep. So I want to give you the key features that are going to enable your website to be effective rather than just a brochure. And I want to make sure that you know which are the key ones and which ones are the nice to haves. So let's get into it. Now, number one, when you're building a new website, you should identify what is the purpose for the website. We really need to understand what is the outcome we're trying to generate. Now, there are all sorts of reasons to have a website in a consulting practice. You might have a website that fulfills a lot of the delivery in what you do. You could have a website that is there to take analysis or to do diagnostic and maybe be a bit of a survey or a quiz. Those are great websites, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the main website that positions you as the trusted advisor and speaks to the audience in a way that they go, this person understands me, and ideally takes the next step and makes an inquiry. So we want the person to at least make an inquiry or connect with us in some way so we continue the conversation. Now, there are a number of steps that we need to put in place to make that happen. The first one is to be clear about who we're speaking to. So when you arrive at a website, it takes seconds these days. Seconds for someone to say, am I in the right place or not? In fact, really milliseconds. And so you arrive on a website, is this the right place? And so if you are thinking of having a website that has your company values as the point in center of the website, then it's not going to tell the person that they're in the right place. So I would think again on that one. What I would have is one of two things. I would have a statement that talks specifically to the target market I'm trying to work with, which means this is for carpenters, or this is for corporate executives, or this is for accountants, right? So it's specifically speaking to them, or specifically speaks to the result that you present. Now, there's a nice double hitter with that where you can say, this is the result for carpenters, right? That way they know that not only are they in the right place, but they're in the right place for the result that they're looking for. So ensuring that you have those details above the fold, which means above the point where you scroll, is incredibly important. Now, the fold, where does that come from? Well, in the olden days, there was a newspaper. And newspapers, they were tabloid sized and they would be folded in half. Now, where they got folded in half, that was called the fold. And so the front of the newspaper had a very valuable space, which was, it was sitting face up with it folded, so above that fold. That was the most important real estate. Now, on a website, it's the space that you can see on a desktop or even a mobile phone before someone has to scroll. That is above the fold, and that's the most important space. And there's three things that you need to have there. Number one, the who, you're talking to a specific target market. Number two, the result that you actually generate for people. So if you're not going to get clear on that, my advice would be get very clear on what is the key result that you provide for people. And the third step is to have the product there. Now, what is the product? Hang on a second, Russell. I don't sell products, I sell services. Now, I'm going to be talking mainly to a lot of solo or founder-based consultants, which means you're a consultant who is still doing the consulting work, which means in that case, you are the product. You are the product, which means you should be on the website. You should be front and center above the fold on the website. Now, there are a lot of people who don't like being on the front of the website. They don't like having photos taken. They don't like being the product, but you are the product. And which means that if you are there, then it becomes much easier for people to say, this is the type of person that I'm going to align to, which means number one, get good photography. Number two, don't pretend to be something that you're not. I see a lot of older people and even younger people smoothing out the lines on their face, changing their face in a way that beautifies them. But the mistake that they're making, especially with the wrinkles, is removing wisdom. If you remove wrinkles from a photo, you are removing experience, which means that you are less valuable. So leave these things in. Still get good photos. Take your best foot forward, but ensure that you are on there in a way that represents who you are now, which means that if you haven't had photography done in probably 5 years or so, now might be the right time. So the first things that you need is who you're speaking to, what is the result, and the product, which should be you. Now, if you have a team of consultants and you're not the consultant anymore, have the team there or have someone interacting like they would be in that team scenario. So you could have a couple of people sitting at a table if that's the sort of work you do. You may have all sorts of illustrations of what that looks like, but at the end of the day, someone needs to know what they're going to experience. It's hard enough trying to sell consulting services because you are, the majority of times, selling the invisible. So if now you're selling the invisible and the intangible, it makes it even more difficult to sell or offer what you've got as an opportunity. So you as the product becomes a very tangible device that people can say, okay, that's who I'm going to get when I engage this person or when I speak to this business. So the first 3 steps: who are you speaking to? Make sure it's clearly there. What is the result? And you as the product. So congratulations, you've got someone to stay on your website because you've created a nice landing page experience. Now they know they're in the right place. Where should we take them from there? Well, I would love you to go into the comments and leave a comment as to where you think the next step should be. Where should we take a person who is visiting our website? Should we get them to take a next step, or should they maybe read something on our website? I'll let you type that in and then I'll give you the answer in a little. So they've arrived there. They haven't bounced, which means and a bounce is where they arrive on the website and they leave immediately. So they haven't left immediately. So what are they going to do? Well, on a traditional website, right? A traditional website, by definition, is an archive of links. It's going to have links everywhere. And what happens when someone lands on one of these websites is they go, all right, well, I'm in the right place. Great landing page experience. They start reading. And they might go and click on a link and maybe go to your services page, and they start reading about your services, and they start looking for pricing. But most consulting websites haven't got pricing because there's no fixed price, right? It's value based, or maybe we need to do diagnostic before that happens, and so we don't have the pricing there. And so they start reading about us, and they look at our history and the things that we've done, and then someone in the background distracts them, and they leave your website to go and deal with whatever problem that was. And then they come back and they forgot what they were doing and they move on to the next thing and they're gone. Right? So we want to avoid all these different distractions where possible. Now, there's nothing wrong with having multiple pages on a website. You can just have a single web page that is your website. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can also have additional pages. But if you're going to do that, you need to have a very strong call to action early that is an easy next step for people to take. Now, hopefully some of you have written in your answer in the comments. Here is what I think you should actually put on your website. Now, you may have said, I would put the contact button or the opportunity to make an inquiry. So they fill in a form and they either book an appointment or we will respond via email. Now, the problem with that step is it's too close to the end. So the end step is they pay you a deposit to become a client. Before that, they've made a decision to work with you. Before that, they've made a decision to have an appointment with you. Somewhere along the line here, we've got all these consideration steps. And so we want to move them from awareness, they've landed on your website, which means that they are aware of you, into consideration. And so how can we get them to start considering your services, but not just your services, the problem they're experiencing and how you can potentially solve it? Well, there are 2 really good ways that you can do it, and it's by putting a very clear next step button, probably above the fold, so that people can take that step without them even needing to scroll. Now, there's 2 next steps I recommend for a consulting practice. There are also sorts of next steps for different types of businesses, but for consulting practices, these are the 2. So, number 1, some form of self-diagnostic. Now, it could be a quiz, it could be an assessment, but it tells them something about themselves that they would be interested in learning. It's like trying to work out what Hogwarts house you're in. People like to know where they fit. And so you can have an assessment or a quiz that enables them to identify how far along a journey they are, or what type of person they are, or what type of situation they're in. You can do that. That's a really nice first step. But it can take a lot of time to do. So an easier first step is to give them a resource that's going to help them with the outcome that they're looking to achieve. Now, when we talk about outcomes, and I said this in the last video as well, we want to identify the symptoms they're experiencing and talk to those, because it means that we show that we understand the situation that they're in. We're talking about symptomatic problems they're experiencing. We're not trying to educate the market and tell them about the cause that they're experiencing and how they're doing things all wrong and this is how they have to do things instead. No, we just want to talk about the symptoms they're experiencing. All right, I have the pain in my leg. What I want is the pain to go away. That's the outcome. All right, so my corporate team in the board is the board is experiencing dysfunction because we can't make decisions. We can't make decisions because we're always arguing. So is the board arguing? Moving to, the board is harmoniously moving forward and working together, right? So those are the 2 aspects of symptom and outcome. So with a symptom, we can create a resource, a lead magnet. Maybe it's a guide, maybe it's some form of white paper or something like that that helps people understand their situation a little bit more. You know, so the 7 things that you need to know about corporate governance, or the 7 things you need to know about board dysfunction, or 7 reasons why your board might be dysfunctional. Right? There's all sorts of different ways that you would do this, but the key for you as a consultant is to have expertise and experience working with your target market and understanding their symptoms. So we've got 2 options there. We've got, number 1, we've got the assessment or the quiz. That's a really nice way of starting the introduction, though it can take time because people have to spend time to do it. At the end of it, we will send them some form of light report, which will then maybe invite them to a next step, which is to have a discussion about the report. Or we'll send them a resource, and then by them getting the resource, we're now able to have more conversations with them, because that resource has a form. And when they go to fill in to get the form sent, so to get the resource sent to them, they will put in their name and email address at the very least. You can absolutely ask for someone's phone number, and I find that even putting a required phone number on there means that it doesn't reduce the conversion rate very much. One of the things that a lot of people are scared of putting phone numbers on there, or they think the phone numbers will always be false. The majority of times they're not. So 80% of the times those phone numbers are very valuable. It means that you can often call someone, not just email them. When you're emailing someone, sometimes you can land in their junk. If you've got the email and the phone number, you can send an email, follow up with them, and then you can call them as well. So they're the first 2 steps that you need. Now, once we've got those things in place, we'll tell you about the next step, which is probably the thing that most people building a website do not put in place, and it's the biggest mistake that almost every web creator makes. So you've done 2 things very, very well. The first thing, people have landed on your landing page, your home page, and they haven't left. All right, very, very good. They've now taken a next step. All right, they've taken the next step. What happens after that? Now, you may send them some automated email, or you might actually follow up with them in a more manual way. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the exact instant after they have completed your form and hit submit. The majority of websites will land people on what's called a thank you page, which is a page that says, thank you, your resource is being sent, check your junk mail, goodbye. All right, that's what the majority do. Some websites have a little thank you pop up that goes, thank you, and then it disappears. And then nothing happens. Number 1. Do not ever have a little pop-up that says thank you and disappears. You'll understand why in just a moment. But the majority of people have a thank you page, which is the one that I described. People land there after filling in a form. That page is the hottest page on your entire website. People have landed, they found it to be relevant, they've decided to take a next step, they've decided to start the hero's journey with you. Now you're going to say goodbye to them? No. That is the point to give them the next step. Now, there's all sorts of next steps that you can give them, but you should give them a next step. Now, you may think, well, okay, what about after that next step? Should there be a next step? And what about the step after that? Yes, you should keep doing it as long as it makes sense. I know that there are really successful online marketers who have up to 37 next steps in their sequence. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But for the majority of people, as long as you are not saying thank you straight after they've taken their first step, then you should be fine. Now, there are all sorts of different things you can do. You could get them to book in a call at that point, though I find that there is a very low conversion rate on even that, even when they are hot to take that next step. So I'll tell you what I do, and then you can decide what you want to do yourself. So if you go to russellpearsonprograms.com, you will see that there is a resource that you can download that's relevant for consultants. Now, if you fill in that form, I will send you that absolutely free. That's not the point of this. After, you'll see what I do with the thank you page. I give you a next offer. Now, I'm not asking for money at that point, though you could do that. You could actually have the next step as asking for money. But the majority of times what I do is I say, would you like more stuff? Would you like a bundle of things that are really good resources for consultants? And when people say yes, they would like that, instead of having a name and an email address, maybe a phone number that they have to fill out, I actually ask a series of questions. So there's more detail that they're now going to give me. Now, it's detail that's going to be helpful for them long term, but it's very useful detail for me now. The questions I ask on that are, what would you like less of in your consulting practice, right? Your consulting business. What would you like more of in your consulting business? If I was to create a training for your consulting business, what would that training be? What would be the most helpful training for you? And so those three questions are incredibly valuable for me because they tell me what people want less of. And after I get a lot of these, and I've got hundreds of these that have come through, I can see the trend of what people want less of in their consulting business. And on the flip side, what do they want more of? And there's some real general phrases and some real specific phrases in there that come up time and time again. And that frames a lot of the offers that I create and frames a lot of the communication that I make. But the final step as well is what sort of workshop would be useful for you right now. And that informs the type of workshops that I put on throughout the year. And so that's useful for me. It would be useful for you to put something like that in for your business. But you might want to put something else. There might be an easy next step. Maybe there is a course that you could actually offer that was a paid course. Maybe there's a workshop that's coming up and you put whatever the regular workshop or even an evergreen workshop. But make sure that they've just taken one step with you on your website, that you don't say goodbye on the thank you page. You say, thank you, now take a next step. And so that's how you create a successful website for your consulting business. There's one final step I'm going to give you, but before I do, you've got to make sure that the website obviously has relevant language. It's speaking to a specific audience, right? A specific market that you want to engage with. It has a very clear result that people want, and it's clearly above the fold. It shows the product, which is the majority of time is going to be you. It has a very simple first step for people to take, and ideally a very simple next step for people to take. If you put those things in place, you're going to have a very successful website, and it's going to increase the conversion rate from what the majority of websites are getting, which is less than 1%, to 10, 20, and even 30% and beyond. So imagine someone showing up at your website, like 100 people come to your website, and less than one of them make an inquiry. In fact, the majority of consulting websites I'm seeing are actually converting at less than 0.5%, which means that maybe a short person makes an inquiry with your business, and that means 99 of the other people have left. Imagine walking into a room with 99 or 100 of your ideal prospects, and you only ever talk to one of them. It's such a waste. Don't let that waste be the case for your consulting business website. The only other tip that I would give you is to make sure that you've got some sort of analytics package on your website. I would suggest something like a Google Analytics. It's absolutely free, and it will give you all the data and all the information about the data and the assessment on the data as to how your website is performing. Then make any changes based off that data. Most consultants change their website because of how it makes them feel. Okay. Now, there is a argument for doing that. In other words, if I'm not proud of my website, I'm not going to show anyone my website. And so, number one, yes, you should be proud of your website. But number two, any fine-tuning details that you make to the website should be based off real analytics and real data. And so make sure you're looking at that data as well. You don't just put the package in there and then 3 years later, oh, maybe I should go and have a look if anyone's even looking at my website. Then we can talk about traffic. Then we can talk about moving more people to the website so that it's not just people who saw my LinkedIn post, it's people who actually were referred to me, or people who stumbled across me because I happen to do good search engine optimization, which is a whole nother story. So put those other steps into place and you'll have a very effective consulting website. My name is Russell Pearson. This is the Your Consulting Business Podcast. Until next time, stay passionate and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.